Good afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting of the Climate and Energy Committee to order. And we do have a quorum. And so today we have a couple of presentations. We switched order because we did. And so we're going to start out with the presentation from CenterPoint Energy. We have Jamie Fitzke and Emily Supes with us from CenterPoint. So please go ahead and introduce yourselves for the record and begin with your presentation. Thanks for being here. Oh, you know what? Hold that just a minute. I guess we do have some minutes that we need to approve. So what is the date of the minutes? Representative Kraft, have you had a chance to look at the February 1st minutes?
Madam Chair, I have, and I will move their approval.
All those in favor say aye. Or any discussion to the minutes? I should ask that first. Any discussion to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, and the minutes are approved. With that, we will move on to our business today, and the first is a presentation from CenterPoint. Thank you. Welcome. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Chair Acom. Good afternoon, Chair Acom and members of the Climate and Energy Committee. I'm Jamie Fitzke, Director of Government Affairs at CenterPoint Energy. And with me today is Emily Supes, Professional Engineer and Manager of Regulatory Affairs at CenterPoint Energy. So a brief overview about CenterPoint. CenterPoint operates gas and electric utilities in 6 states shown here. In Minnesota, CenterPoint is primarily focused as a gas distributor. And CenterPoint has deep roots here, stretching back over 150 years. CenterPoint is Minnesota's largest natural gas utility, serving over 900,000 Minnesota homes and businesses, located in 260 communities. CenterPoint directly employs 1,200 Minnesotans, including members of IBEW, OPEIU, the Gas Workers Local 340, and then indirectly through our contractors. We employ LIUNA, the 49ers, and plumbers unions. And also, we're a regulated utility. And given that the services we provide, CenterPoint is regulated by a number of external agencies and stakeholders to deliver safe and reliable natural gas. And when it comes down to the natural gas supply chain, we're actually at the very end of it. We don't produce natural gas, and we don't process it. We don't even transport it across state lines. We're what's known as a local distribution company, or an LDC for short. So we buy natural gas in the market, and our suppliers transport it to the city borders, where then it becomes part of our distribution system and what we deliver then to our customers. But importantly, I like to note that the price we pay for natural gas in the market is the same price that our customers pay. There's no markup or profit in the natural gas we deliver to our customers. And natural gas provides 2/3 of Minnesotans depend on natural gas to keep their homes warm, and especially on days like last Friday when we reached -15 degrees. Additionally, some of Minnesota's largest industries depend on us to enable their manufacturing, crop and food producing, and ethanol production. And we like to say we're there when you need it most. And we're an important contributor to our state's energy needs. During the 2019 polar vortex, CenterPoint Energy gas customers alone used the equivalent of 20,000 megawatts, or 20 gigawatts, of electricity. That's more energy than Minnesota's total electric generation capacity. And just for instance, on Friday, CenterPoint customers used an equivalent of 18 gigawatts, which is equivalent to Minnesota's electric generation capacity. Sorry, sometimes that's hard to get out. So we can reliably provide warmth when residents and businesses need it the most. And to provide some additional context to Minnesota's total system energy use, the gray bars, which I apologize, you guys have black and white copies, but the gray bars is kind of the static ones that's across the center there. So the gray shows electric system loads and is around the low use of around 6 gigawatts and peaks at close to 14 gigawatts during the summer. But our greatest energy, or greatest total energy use, is in the cold months. The red, which is kind of more of the jumpy, jagged line, the red represents building heating loads, which is typically met through natural gas. So this graph illustrates and provides a glimpse at the total energy use and the importance of reliably meeting our capacity needs during the coldest months. I'd like to also include a graph or a snapshot of how customer bills, how they're arranged, or the percentage of cost. And 60% of customers' costs are from the commodity cost of natural gas. And again, liking to mention that CenterPoint is known as a decoupled utility, which is a fancy word for saying there's no markup on the cost of gas. But we also understand due to personal circumstances and economic times, it can be really hard to pay your energy bills. So CenterPoint offers programs to make bills more affordable, and we partner with state agencies and community-based organizations to increase access and participation in assistance programs. And we're also continuing and expanding our long-time commitment to energy efficiency, which most of you should have this in your handout, and I'm like to give a shout out to Representative Zach Stevenson in particular. So through our Conservation Improvement Program, known as CIP for short, CenterPoint Energy has long been recognized as one of the nation-leading energy efficiency programs. And thanks to Representative Stevenson for his lead authorship, and many of you here for the bipartisan support in passing the Energy Conservation and Optimization Act, known as ECO for short, in 2021. So due to state legislation like that and regulatory policies that support energy efficiency, we've been able to help our residents and businesses decrease their energy use, save money, and reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. Over the years, it's added up to some significant savings. That's nearly $2 billion saved, and the carbon equivalent to nearly 2.4 million cars removed. And at CenterPoint, we're excited to embrace a wide range of clean energy innovations that will help us, our customers, and the state meet carbon reduction and clean energy goals. So now I'll turn it over to my colleague, Emily, who will provide details on our innovative practices, pilot projects, and future.
Thanks, Jamie. Like Jamie mentioned, we are approaching innovation from multiple different angles. First, we're reducing emissions in Minnesota by optimizing our own operations. In the past decade, we've reduced emissions from our Minnesota operations by nearly 25% by upgrading our infrastructure and using cutting-edge technologies to keep natural gas in the pipe and out of the air. We also deploy a fleet of Picaro surveyor vehicles, which is shown in the top right picture here, which uses advanced technology that is 1,000 times more sensitive than traditional methods to efficiently locate potential leaks in our underground system, allowing us to fix them sooner. We survey about 8,500 miles of our facilities per year using Picaro. We've also pioneered innovative ZVAC vacuum and compression technology, also known as cross compression, to avoid venting natural gas when pipelines are taken in and out of service for inspection, repair, and replacement. We are utilizing this cross compression technology for not only our larger scale projects, but also have smaller units on our technicians' trucks that can be utilized for natural gas service lines. So they're almost the size of your finger. So to reduce venting even small amounts of natural gas to the air. This spring, we launched our green hydrogen pilot here in Minneapolis. We use renewable electricity to safely split hydrogen from water, with the hydrogen then blended at low concentrations with natural gas in our local distribution system. Green hydrogen is a new made in Minnesota energy resource. Because there's no carbon emissions from either its production or its use, green hydrogen has the potential to be an important zero carbon supplement to conventional natural gas. We're one of the first natural gas utilities in the United States to produce and add green hydrogen to our distribution system, and it's just exciting that it's being done here in Minnesota. Not only are we excited about Minnesota-made innovation, we're also very excited about the significant amount of Minnesota resources that we utilized for this pilot project. From the engineering work even to the backup generator, we utilized many Minnesota companies. The primary goal of this pilot is really to learn and gain operational experience with making green hydrogen and integrating it most effectively into our local natural gas system to lower the carbon content of our delivered energy. Here is a look at the hydrogen facility. I know some of you have been able to visit, but we'd love to give you a tour of the site if you're interested. Another made in Minnesota energy resource we're exploring is renewable natural gas, or RNG. RNG is produced by capturing and recycling biogas from farms, food waste, wastewater facilities, and other sources. RNG is an opportunity to diversify Minnesota's energy supply with a local resource that's interchangeable with conventional natural gas. We've already secured regulatory approval to begin accepting RNG into our system from Minnesota suppliers, and we're currently in discussions with several project developers. Finally, CenterPoint is excited about piloting the first decentralized commercial carbon capture technology in the United States, again, here in Minnesota. We're working with a Canadian company called Clean O2 that has developed a new technology called Carbon X that captures CO2 from natural gas equipment and then converts it into a safe, non-toxic carbonate powder called pearl ash. The powder then can be reused in commercial products such as soaps, detergents, fertilizer, and glass. In addition to reducing emissions, this technology can increase efficiency to achieve both energy savings and cost savings for the customer. We have an upcoming ribbon cutting event in March for one of our units at the Radisson Blu at Mall of America, that which we'd also be happy to connect with anybody on. And then thanks to many representatives here, including lead NGIA author Zach Stevenson, CenterPoint is working toward a clean energy future through the Natural Gas Innovation Act, or NGIA for short. With significant bipartisan support, NGIA passed in June of 2021, establishing a regulatory framework to pursue renewable energy resources and innovative technologies to help the state meet its renewable energy and carbon reduction goals while continuing to provide the reliable, cost-effective energy that Minnesotans count on every day. CenterPoint is developing our first NGIA innovation plan, which we are targeting to file with the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission this summer. You can find additional details on the other side of the document that Jamie referenced earlier. And then lastly, shown here is a high-level breakdown of our progress, which started at the beginning of last year, showing substantial analysis and stakeholder engagement through our NGIA innovation plan creation. We'll be hosting our second engagement meeting on February 24th, which is open to anyone interested. At that engagement meeting, we'll share the carbon reduction potential as well as the cost-benefit analysis of our potential pilot projects for stakeholder feedback. Again, we're also happy to connect with anyone that has any follow-up questions or requests here.
And then just in closing, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, and you'll find some QR codes for our different programs. Thank you again for the opportunity to present.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think we've got a few minutes for questions before we swap presenters. Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. Thank you for your time that you put into this presentation. Just, you know, a conversation that's been floating around the Capitol is potentially eliminating the use of natural gas with the signing of the 20 by 40 or the 100 by 2040. You know, have you, as an association and a group, done any? What would be the replacement generation capacity needed to? You know, you said in your statement that a vast majority is using for heating in the wintertime, so that's going to every single door. You know, have you done like a gigawatt comparison to by taking actual natural gas and burning it in the home to create heat, and what it would cost to essentially how much more generation we'd need to replace that heat generated into electrical heat?
Ms. Fitzy.
Chair Acom, Chair Dudzinski. So we haven't done a cost analysis of that. We've only looked at it as a BTU comparison, British thermal units, compared to what electricity would be versus natural gas. And that was sort of highlighted on two of the slides there. Granted, we were looking at what I would call cold or extreme weather conditions. I mean, thankfully, it's not -14 every day here in Minnesota in the winter. I don't know if I could make it if that was the case. But that comparison is looking around 18 gigawatts of power equivalent or electricity equivalent that would be needed. But I'm sorry, we don't have a cost comparison.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Susan.
Thank you. And so, so about 18 gigawatts. And so, that's something to consider as we move forward as a legislature, whether that's a feasible, and something else to also consider as we're looking at these issues, just from a capacity within a city block. So, city blocks, they've already got infrastructure from an electrical standpoint, but do they have the capacity when it comes to the actual transmission into a neighborhood? So we have pipes, we have all that infrastructure that people have already paid for and developed, and I think that's an important conversation to have, and we just appreciate the service you provide Minnesotans. So thank you.
And next we have Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit about the power to ammonia. That's one thing I don't know anything about.
Ms. Fitzke or Ms. Supis?
Well, I was just, Chair and Representative, I think that we're still developing our plan around power to ammonia. I think it's part of, we're exploring it in our natural gas innovation plan. But I think we can always follow up, but I'm unfortunately not the expert on the power to ammonia, but we would love to follow up and give you more information.
Representative O'Neill, did you have a follow-up or?
Oh, I look forward to the meeting. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great. Seeing no further questions. Oh, Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Madam Chair, and to the testifiers, do you supply natural gas to any of our electricity providers in the state of Minnesota?
Either of the testifiers.
Chair and Representative, yes, we do.
And Madam Chair, and
Garofalo.
to the testifiers, so last week the United States of America used more natural gas on Friday than it has at any time in our history, like a record amount of energy consumption. And despite that, natural gas prices are lower than they were 5, 10, even 20 years ago. So how was your sector able to achieve dramatic increases in demand, but still low? Why is the prices lower?
Ms. Fitzke.
Chair Acom, Representative. I guess one way to answer that question would be it's a global market. So part of this is through production, being able to meet the capacity that's needed. I think we're pretty much so all aware that natural gas prices, like a lot of commodities, fluctuate with supply and demand. And fortunately, Friday was a day where there was plenty of supply on the market to meet the demand.
Any
So,
follow-up, Representative Garofalo?
No, thank you, Madam Chair, and the testifiers. I just think it's a great American success story, is that there was a time in this country where there actually was a federal law prohibiting electricity providers from building natural gas power plants. It was actually against the law. You couldn't do it. And there's a famous quote from somebody in Washington, D.C., where they said that creating electricity with natural gas was like taking a bath in champagne, because it was such a precious commodity. And now, because of America's innovation and utility providers like CenterPoint, we see this American success story where we are seeing record reductions in our emissions. In the state of Minnesota, we've reduced our energy emissions, partially because of increased use of natural gas, partially because of increased use of renewables, and partially because of lower use of coal. But we're also now exporting that energy to other countries to provide not only a more stable and secure supply, but also to reduce costs and emissions worldwide. It's just the natural gas industry in America is a great success story, and thank you to CenterPoint for the part that they play in it.
One final question with Representative Swedzinski before we go to our next speaker.
Sounds good. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one other question. I was not sure if I saw it in your presentation, but a lot of the things we do is we're looking at the high cost of energy in the state of Minnesota, and from a local standpoint, but also from a state standpoint, roughly what natural gas infrastructure pays in the statewide business property tax would be something I'd like you to look at, maybe potentially get back to us. And then also just from a local property tax standpoint for local units of government, kind of what does that infrastructure and what does that infusion into the state coffers and when it comes to increasing cost on rates. So thank you.
And probably get that information back,
Yes,
right?
yep.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you to both of the testifiers. Appreciate you guys being here. Next, we're going to have Commissioner Grace Arnold from the Department of Commerce come and talk with us about the Department of Commerce and their budget. And John Kelly, I think, is going to join us as well. Thank you. So as you're getting yourself situated there, and when you're ready, you can go ahead and just introduce yourself for the record. Welcome.
Great. Good afternoon, Chair Acom and members. I'm Grace Arnold, and I'm the Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Commerce. I'm going to fill airtime while John...
And while you do that, maybe I'll just say congratulations on your long overdue confirmation.
Thank you. So it's a... Are you... Right here. All right. So we have the slides up now. So I'm really excited to be here today to talk about our governor's budget recommendations for the Division of Energy Resources that's within the department. But before I get to the budget items, I just want to provide a little bit of background about the department for some of the newer members. So I'll talk a little bit about the division, Minnesota's energy resource mix, Minnesota's climate action framework, our 2023 legislative priorities, and then some transmission needs and federal funding opportunities. So for more than 150 years, the Minnesota Department of Commerce and its predecessor agencies have served Minnesotans. Our mission is to protect and assist consumers, to ensure a strong, competitive, and fair marketplace, and to engage people and communities across the state. We have 5 strategic priorities, which are to protect the public interest, to serve as a trusted resource, to reduce economic barriers, to promote climate change resilience for Minnesotans, and to ensure strong, competitive, and fair marketplaces. And these are across all of the divisions that we and the industries that we oversee. So not just energy, this goes to insurance and banking and mortgage and sports agents and all the fun things that we get to do. So we like to say that we're with you every day, and that's because we truly are. So whether you're filling up on gas, and you can see the sticker that says Minnesota Department of Commerce, whether you purchase a home, whether you take steps to reduce energy use in your home, or rebuild after a disaster, in many ways you benefit from the services and oversight provided by the multiple areas of the department that we either implement or oversee. So our Division of Energy Resources is the largest division that we have. This one is my favorite slide because I get to talk up my team, which is fantastic. So our goal is to promote clean, reliable, and affordable energy for Minnesota homes and businesses. This division serves as Minnesota's state energy office. And with this office or division, we have regulatory, policy, and programmatic roles. I'm not able to be joined by our Deputy Commissioner, Michelle Granzi, because she is at the board of at the State Energy Office Conference, where she sits on the board. She will be on the executive committee, and she is a member of many other committees. So we have a national presence when we're looking at Minnesota-specific issues, and I think that'll be particularly important as we look to draw down federal funds and have an amplified voice through some of those roles. She's not the only one who's nationally recognized, but I do want to talk her up a little bit. So through our energy affordability function, we administer both the Low-Income Energy Assistance Program, or LIHEAP, and the Weatherization Assistance Programs. And through our energy development units, we provide environmental review for large-scale energy projects. We maintain state emergency energy planning and recovery plans. We host the Energy Information Center and the Energy Data Repository for the state, as well as some grants and contracting activities, financing and funding programs, and other areas of technical assistance, which include the IIJA and IRA federal opportunities, information outreach. Within our regulatory analysis section, we oversee Minnesota's utilities conservation improvement programs and advocate on behalf of consumers and ratepayers in proceedings involving regulated utilities on energy and telecommunications. And finally, we have cross-unit functions related to energy reliability, transmission planning, and energy resilience planning. So I'll talk a little bit about Minnesota's generation mix over time. Minnesota's electricity generation mix has evolved significantly over the last 20 years. Between 2005 and 2021, electricity generated from renewables, including wind and solar, increased from 6% to 29%. Electricity generated from natural gas increased from 5% to 21%, and coal power dropped from 62% to 27%. So, talk a little bit more about Minnesota's transforming electricity market. So we'll dig a little deeper. Renewable electricity generation and based on estimates from the Energy Information Administration, we estimate that in 2021, wind generated 22% of Minnesota's electricity and solar generated about 3%. That's small, but it's growing really fast. These resources are procured through utility developed or self-build projects or power purchased through agreements from independent power producers. Minnesota also continues to rely on hydropower, both generated from resources procured in Minnesota and from Manitoba Hydro in Canada. So finally, a small percent of renewable generation is from biomass. Biomass for the purposes of renewable energy standard could be landfill gas, anaerobic digestion systems, mixed municipal solid waste, or refuse-derived fuels. So let's talk now about the impact of Minnesota policy efforts to date. From the Next Generation Energy Act of 2007 to the Energy Conservation and Optimization Act of 2021, and additional policies, there's been a significant impact of policy-based levers. So Minnesotans have saved over $6 billion on their utilities through conservation and energy efficiency activities that have helped to strengthen Minnesota's economy. We have an amazing framework for energy efficiency built up over many years to ensure these savings are realized. We've installed nearly 6,000 megawatts of wind and solar generation since 2005. And an additional effect of Minnesota's strong renewable energy policies is that coal generation in Minnesota has been reduced to under 30%, which has resulted in significantly less carbon emissions to date. So I want to talk a little bit about the carbon intensity of our energy. Compared to the rest of the nation, the Midwest has relied heavily on coal for electricity generation. And so it's not a big surprise that Minnesota has had higher emissions than the national average. But Minnesota has been doing some really heavy lifting compared to improve our energy mix and reduce our carbon profile and also clean up our air and water. The sum total of previous slides noting Minnesota's generation mix changing over time is that it has resulted in reduced carbon intensity of electricity generated from Minnesota's resources, and that carbon intensity fell below the national average for the first time in 2020. That's a 46% drop in emissions from a 2005 baseline. Clean energy progress in Minnesota will continue to be driven by storage energy policies and pragmatic analysis in a rapidly changing energy system. Minnesota is currently on a trajectory to continue lowering its intensity far below the national average. So I want to take this opportunity to share a little bit more information today about Minnesota's plan to address and prepare for climate change and to continue to address greenhouse gas emissions in the state through our cross-agency climate action framework. This framework was published in September of 2022, and the framework was built with over 2 years of robust engagement with all sectors of the state and the public in order to drive innovative policy solutions. Minnesota's Climate Action Framework sets a vision for how our state will address and prepare for the effects of climate change. It identifies immediate near-term actions that we must take to achieve our long-term vision of a carbon-neutral, resilient, and equitable future for our state. Every Minnesotan will play a role in this work, and it will take everyone to make this vision a reality. So we hope this framework will catalyze actions across all sectors. Ultimately, that's what we want and need: action on climate change. And the state agencies and advisory council cannot do it alone. So we hope to see others see themselves in the document, and we'll see how they can work toward our vision. It's important to emphasize that the framework identifies some ambitious but achievable short-term steps that we can take to move toward the long-term success. It does not lay out everything we must do to reach our greenhouse gas reduction goals or build all the resilience we need in the face of a changing climate. But it's a really good start. So our work in the Climate Action Framework is organized along 6 goal areas, or 6 kind of buckets. Clean transportation represents our greatest opportunity to reduce climate pollution. We can connect Minnesotans with sustainable and affordable transportation options. We can grow climate-smart natural and working lands to absorb and store carbon to reduce emissions and sustain local economies. We can build resilient communities by equipping local leaders with tools they need to adapt to extreme weather caused by changing climate. And investing in clean energy and efficient buildings will create jobs and lower energy costs. We can ensure healthy lives in communities across Minnesota, keeping in mind that some communities experience the impacts of climate change more than others. And finally, we can transition to a clean economy with climate solutions that benefit everyone, creating new jobs in every corner of our state. So I'll turn now to talk a little bit about how our budget proposals build on the climate action framework. In the 2022 session, we have a number of budgetary and policy components that are essential to meeting those climate goals. Some members will recognize several of these items from last session as they were included in the Jobs and Energy Omnibus that was a bipartisan agreement that was left on the table on the last day of session. So the first of these is the State Competitiveness Fund. This proposal will invest $113.75, I'm going to be very precise in these, $1 million in state funds to unlock billions of dollars in federal funding available through the Infrastructure Act and the Inflation Reduction Act. It provides critical state resources to match federal funds, to provide technical assistance, and to provide grant writing help for rural, tribal, and disadvantaged communities so Minnesota can compete for multiple energy-related competitive and formula grants. Our next proposal is pre-weatherization and workforce training. So this program invests in improving homes to be safe and warm and to grow the clean energy workforce trained to make these important home improvements. The program will cover costs to repair homes with health and safety problems so that those homes can then qualify for the federally funded weatherization program, which will make homes more energy efficient and permanently reduce those homes' energy costs. This proposal will help meet the state's climate action framework goal of weatherizing a quarter of low-income Minnesotans' homes by 2030. Next, I'd like to talk about Strengthen Minnesota Homes. In this proposal, the department will help Minnesotans to be more resilient to our changing climate by providing grants to help protect homes against extreme weather events. This has been modeled after successful programs in other states, and this proposal will save Minnesotans money on homeowners' insurance premiums and prevent damage from an increasing number of storms and extreme weather. The next proposal we have is Solar for Schools expansion. So under our budget proposal, this will expand the very popular Solar for Schools program to provide the opportunity for solar power to be added to every school outside of XL service territory. That's up to 723 additional schools in 187 school districts across Minnesota, and could add on each of those up to 40 kilowatts solar system to help reduce school energy costs and offer students a hands-on learning experience about clean energy and pathways to clean energy careers. Next, we have a repeal of a sunset of assessment authority that we currently have and restore that authority assessment level to historic levels. The next is an investment in our energy regulation and planning division. So with these additional resources, the Energy Resources and Planning Unit will be able to respond to proceedings at the Public Utilities Commission in a more timely manner with more robust expertise and better informed through public engagement to meet the current challenges of the energy industry. So the final item that I will note, some of this is not in the budget lines that fall under this committee, but we have an operating adjustment or a maintaining current agency operations adjustment. So this is both energy and climate, so I think there are a couple of you who sit on both. Like most state agencies, we have ongoing increases in our costs, whether that's IT or insurance or staffing costs, and this helps to keep up our funding with our base proposals, or our base, for our base work that we are already doing. All right, John's going to take all your questions.
Nice.
happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. So we'll open it up for questions. Representative Swazinski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, you had mentioned on one of the sheets about an assessment for that SRF of $1 million. Just, that's obviously just one example of where you're going to be raising assessments potentially on business and utilities. What other areas are you planning on either raising fees or the rest of that throughout this ask within this genre?
Commissioner Arnold?
And how much?
Chair Acom, Representative Swazinski, this is the only place that we are modifying the assessment that currently exists.
Just that. Okay.
Representative Swazinski?
So the rest of the increase will be all general fund and one-time money or potential that? Okay. Thank you. And then just a follow-up to that, what guarantees do we have that this will actually lower people's bills if this budget is to move forward?
Commissioner Arnold?
Chair Acom, Representative Swazinski. So we represent the public interest at the Public Utilities Commission, and through that work have saved Minnesotans hundreds of millions of dollars over time. So you can look at our past work that we have done at the Public Utilities Commission. I will say that certain sectors of the people's energy costs are really vulnerable to price increases, and the fossil fuel-based ones are particularly vulnerable to price variability, and we don't have any authority to regulate that. So we would not have any guarantee that your heating oil is not going to be very expensive or your propane.
Representative Swazinski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just from a standpoint of utility, Minnesota has a goal of 95% of the national average. How does this advance that to reach that goal?
Commissioner Arnold?
Chair Acom and Representative Swazinski. So that provides this, in particular, the areas that are investing in the reliability and the ERP division help to provide really robust analysis so that when we are advocating at the Public Utilities Commission that we're able to do that in a really robust way.
Representative Swazinski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you have any ideas as far as putting teeth in it to force the Public Utilities Commission to make sure and ensure that these rates that are moving forward are 95% of the national average?
Commissioner Arnold?
Chair Acom, Representative Swazinski. I think that that's not something that's currently in our budget, but it's something that we're working toward. That's why we have our weatherization proposal, is to make sure people have energy efficient homes, which are a piece of the puzzle that you miss if you are only looking at the cost.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to follow up to that, I know in other areas we do have other programs that go through United Community Partnerships with weatherization and a lot of those programs, and there's a clawback. So essentially, if you're a person that utilizes those programs, whether they have new windows put in, new insulation put in their home, that if the person sells the home before 10 years, they have a graduated rate that they need to pay that to taxpayers because it is their money, or ratepayers in some cases. What assurances, as these programs are potentially moving forward, will you give to taxpayers and ratepayers that if people's homes are improved, if a new roof gets put on, which is part of this budget, that if they sell the home before 5 to 10 years, that the taxpayers will receive their money back because of the increased value of that home, rather than the homeowner get to receive all that benefit?
Commissioner Arnold?
Chair Acom, Representative Swazinski. I'm not quite sure I understand the question, but in general, these are grant programs that are investing in homes that make people safe, warm, and able to be more resilient.
Yeah, Madam Chair. I do understand that, and I'm not arguing that point at all. What I'm saying is in other areas of state statute, we do have programs that do some of these same things, weatherization and other things to improve people's homes, to make them safer and make them warmer and all that other business. But, you're expanding the scope quite a bit from that point. And the state saw it best at that point in time to make sure that if the home is sold before 10 years and at a graduated rate after 5, that the state can recapture some of those dollars so that they can help other people that might be going through the same issue. That those dollars won't simply just be going out, but if you're able to improve your home, improve its value, that because the state gave money for that those individuals would actually return some of those dollars back so that other people could have their homes improved as well.
Chair Akam,
Commissioner Arnold.
Representative Swazinski, I'm not familiar with those programs.
Well,
Happy to
let's
look
chat
at
about
them.
that,
The weatherization program is a federal funding program, so that's where my confusion is, that it's all federal dollars.
Sure.
Great. Did you have another question, Representative?
Sure.
Okay. One more.
And then there's been some talk about some of these programs as they're being spent for prevailing wage, and just wanted to see kind of what potential reduction you see in the amount of projects that would get completed if that is to move forward.
Commissioner Arnold.
Chair Akam, Representative Swazinski, there are a lot of resources that are coming in to build a clean energy economy, and I think that my hope is that Minnesota is well positioned to take advantage of all of those. And so I think, if anything, we're going to be trying to do more than have something not happen. And I really hope that we're in that position.
Great. Next on the list, we have Representative Kraft.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Commissioner Arnold, thanks for being here. Excited to see the State Competitiveness Fund, to how to leverage the IIJA and the IRA, and love it that it's looking at grant writing, et cetera. One thing with the IRA, there's quite a significant amount of tax credits that are available now for 10 years. And those don't require grants. Those are just available for homeowners, small businesses, local governments, to nonprofits to access. Have you thought about how we can market those more, make those understood? Because there's quite a number of things available that not everyone understands how to access them, and maybe also that there's enough workforce and resource out there to support some of them.
Commissioner Arnold.
Chair Akam, Representative Kraft, thanks for the question. Yeah, I think that's something that we'll do and we'll think about doing through our state energy office, and we've already started getting a lot of questions. I will say, it's a tax proposal, and so we're trying to figure out how to make sure we communicate about it in a way that is accurate when we're not tax experts, and so we'll partner with the Department of Revenue, and we'll be trying to get some additional help from the feds to help communicate about that. So yes, absolutely. I think we want to do that. The funds with the State Competitiveness Fund, will help us have an infrastructure that can connect the dots, that can help people, and then can also help local units of government who may communicate about those things as well through their municipal utility, or however they are communicating with their citizens. I think there are a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of interest. And so our goal is to have some funding at the states and then be able to enable other entities to also be partners with us in making sure that we are really able to get the most benefit from all of the federal programs, of which there are billions of dollars here in Minnesota.
Representative Kraft.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioner, so thank you. I'm excited to hear that you're talking about it with the tax folks. How do we bridge this? And would be interested in whatever you come out with and helping in whatever way I can. So thank you.
Next on the list is Representative Carroll.
Thank you, Chair. And congratulations. So good to see you again. And congratulations on your appointment and confirmation. I'm excited about it, and I hope you are too. I just wanted to follow up from Representative Kraft's questions and ask about the Energy Information Office. First of all, does it still exist? Mm-hmm. Okay. And Chair, let me just tell you that is one of my favorite features of state government. Every year we would go to the state fair, and I'd bring my kids along, and they'd have to suffer through my going to the ECHO experience and the State Information Office. And I believe the guy was Phil Smith. Was he the director of it? Was that before your time?
Chair Akam, Representative Carroll, yes, that was, he is not with the department anymore. But we have a talented new group of people who would be happy to see you at the state fair.
Right. Representative
And
Carroll.
Chair, and I'm sure there would, but he was, in my mind, legendary. He had so much information. And I tell you, I found it personally useful because I bought a house, as a lot of people do. So guess what? It was an old house, and guess what happens? You have to start repairing it. One of the things I had to replace was a water heater. And you'd think you'd find information about water heaters. Water heaters use a lot of energy. I think it's the second most consumed energy in the house, aside from your heating and cooling. And you'd think there'd be information about water heaters and what's good and what isn't. Consumer Reports had nothing about it. But guess what? The Energy Information Office did, and it explained what they were and how they work and what to get, and even getting these little valves that help reduce heat loss. So for that purpose, I was so excited that the Energy Information Office existed, and Phil Smith was there to dispense the information. So I'm delighted, and I just want to congratulate you again.
Representative Carroll, Chair Haricum, Representative Carroll, thank you. That team does a really great job. They know a ton about the energy mix, and they will tell you all kinds of things. So they get a lot of questions at the state fair, and especially this year, I think we've gotten a lot more about, I'm thinking about putting solar on. What do I do? Someone had a horse farm and wanted to have solar and battery backup to have a more resilient electric fence system around their farm, and they had a great conversation. So I think those are the ways that we, help and interact with everyday Minnesotans with whatever their. I wasn't expecting it to be a horse farm to be the problem, but it was, that's what we talked about that day, and that was really great.
Sure. So I think that it just points out the need to help consumers when we're doing all this stuff. The consumers are the end users, and so they need information as well.
I think, Representative Carroll, that's a really important point, the whole consumer education piece about not only the IRA and the opportunities, but what knowledgeable next choices might be.
Exactly.
Representative, or Commissioner Arnold, did you have anything?
Chair Acom and Representative Carroll, that's very much on our mind. There are a lot of opportunities through the Department of Energy, and one of the reasons we have the State Competitiveness Fund is to make sure that we can capitalize on them, but they don't necessarily come boxed like a human does, and so our job will be to, help translate that and say, okay, like for people or communities, this is how this can benefit you, and here's how we can draw down as much of those funds in ways that Minnesotans want to benefit themselves or their community.
Thank you.
Anything further? No. Representative Igo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, thank you for being here today. My question for you is, what is the Department of Commerce doing in regards to our supply chains and kind of availability and sourcing of everything we're going to need for these priorities that were outlined here in your presentation?
Commissioner Arnold.
Chair Acom, Representative Igo. So we have a number of proposals that help to build the workforce. So the weatherization proposal helps build workforce to make sure that we have people who can, do insulation in a way that is super energy efficient, or, install a heat pump, whatever ends up being the right fit for that house. We also have, if you look at our Solar on Schools, one of the components of Solar on Schools, which is a bipartisan program that was established, Chair Acom championed and Senator Senjum championed, it has an education component. So as we're building, building solar on the schools, we're also teaching kids about the solar that's there. My kids' school has one, and they ask a million questions about it, which is really nice because then I can talk to them about, the way that solar panel got there, and why it's important to have that there. So, I think there are ways that we will be investing in kind of an ecosystem. There are other things like our work with the Hydrogen Hub and our MOUs with other states to bring, clean hydrogen and invest in the hydrogen economy. So there are a lot of ways that we'll be investing in sort of a clean economy, and I think that I'm really excited about the opportunities.
Representative Igo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that answer, Commissioner, but you kind of totally missed my question there about supply chain. So, like when you're talking about the solar panels on top of the school, I hope you're telling your children where they're coming from, right? I mean, this is a serious problem. Again, we're not seeing this conversation being had. I was just reading an article today about how we have a global copper shortage. And if we don't start mining it right now, it's going to actually lead to more inflationary pressure on all of our economies around the globe. we keep talking about how we're going to invest in a clean and equitable energy future, but we have no way to source and manufacture that. So my hope was today to ask you as the Commissioner of Commerce, what is the department doing to find stable supply chains? What are we doing to bring that manufacturing here? What are we doing to be able to secure those critical minerals here? Because right now we're reliant on like 3 places around the world that are not friends and allies of the United States, that are not friends and allies of Minnesota.
Commissioner Arnold.
Chair Acom and Representative Igo. So a good chunk of that is out of Commerce's purview. We don't deal with foreign affairs. We don't, the sort of global supply chain and business development fall outside of although we are called the Department of Commerce, we aren't like growing economy here. I will say that there are a number of provisions in the federal bills that direct American-made manufacturing, and so I think that's a step, and we'll kind of see how those economies grow. I think the hydrogen tax credit is a great example.
And look, I think Representative Stevenson wanted to add something.
Madam Chair, I was just going to note that the solar panel thing is actually something where we've made some significant progress here in Minnesota, up on the Iron Range, where we have the Helene facility, which expanded thanks to the fine work of a lot of people in this legislature, including myself. I think the chair was involved with that. I think Representative Listlegard, that was his bill. And that allows for a lot of the solar panels that we're talking about building to be Minnesota made right here. I think that's now the largest solar manufacturer in the country, if I'm not mistaken, which is wonderful.
Thank you. Representative Igo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're right. They are the largest assembling. You know where they get all their materials, Representative Stevenson? China, who just last week was announcing they're not going to send us solar wafers or solar ingots anymore. So they're just putting things together on the other side, or up on the range. They're not actually building them. They're not sourcing them. And I'm going to tell you right now, the people on the Iron Range wish they were building it with the materials that were right there in northern Minnesota, and we're not. So I appreciate you making the call out to my part of the state, but they're not benefiting from Minnesotan labor and jobs producing the materials. They're coming from China.
Are there any other questions from folks? I'm not seeing any, so I'm going to ask really quick. You talked about the weatherization and pre-weatherization program, and I think, if I recall in your presentation, you said the investments from this budget will get us to 25% of low-income homes by 2030. Am I remembering it wrong?
No,
Commissioner?
You are, Chair Acom. You are remembering the goal correctly. So it's, so I don't want to misstate it because
Since you have the numbers there, you can go back. Yeah.
So we would like to weatherize a quarter of low-income Minnesotans' homes by 2030. So we have additional funding from the federal government for the core weatherization program now. What this will do is wrap around that. So if you have a house that has a senior living on fixed income and has a hole in the roof, we can't go in and weatherize it because it doesn't meet the federal criteria. So what we'd like to do is close that hole, and then we can use the federal funds. So we are investing in jobs to do the work, and the training with this funding, and investing in sort of the health and safety and just basic getting it up to an ability to then be weatherized. And so that's what this funding does.
I think that's great, and I like the fact of having a goal of 25. I would like to see it. Do you have any estimate of how long it would take to get us to 100%? If I recall, years ago, there was a statement it was going to be like 300 years or something to get all the homes weatherized. So it feels like there's maybe a little bit of a faster pace, which is important and necessary. Any thoughts about how long it might take?
Yeah, Chair Acom, I'll have to get back to you on the exact dates. It's changed a little bit because we've had increased federal funding, but it is not like going to happen soon.
No,
I can tell you that.
It's going to take a lot of deliberate and targeted work. And are there ways through the IRA to be able to accelerate that? Can that help us to this goal?
Yeah. Chair Acom, and so there are the tax credits in the IRA. Those are not income eligible homes. There's also a program called HOMES, which is an acronym. So that will come through the State Energy Office. That is also an energy efficiency and performance program. We have, and then there's an additional program called HERA, so we can give you all the details about these. And then the additional money that we have for weatherization is $76 million. So when I said before that there are a lot of different federal programs, the goal is that, we have 25% of low-income Minnesotans who have weatherized homes. The way that we do that, we may get creative with because there are so many different levers that we have. And so this, the proposal that we have in here is sort of our down payment on that and our investment from the state side, knowing that there are a lot of different federal options that are available.
That's encouraging, so thank you. And any final questions? I'm not seeing any. Thank you, Commissioner Arnold and Mr. Kelly. Appreciate you being here today. And with that, I think we're done with everything, so we get to give you guys back a half an hour. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.